Today's video might feel like a deja vu moment, and that's entirely by design. Because here on my channel, on Bokeh Bushido, I believe that wisdom is like light. It refracts, it bounces, and it reveals new angles depending on where you're standing. While each of my videos has its unique focus, you'll notice threads of overlap, familiar echoes, reoccurring themes. Why? Because growth is not linear, and understanding isn't a one-time event either. Sometimes we need to circle back to a concept. We need to hear it rephrased, or we even need to see it in a different light before it truly takes root. It's kind of like revisiting a favorite book a year later. Suddenly, new passages leap off the page, right? Speaking to the version of you that's grown in the meantime. So if today's message reminds you a little of something that you've heard before, lean in. Let it unfold in the way that your journey needs it to right now. This process of layered understanding is really part of the Bushido way, steady, intentional, and ever deepening. With that in mind, let's step into today's video and uncover another layer together. Well, let's start with Edwin's story of self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear. Edwin, a master of his craft, a bookbinder with hands as steady as a clockmaker's and a soul that poured love into every intricate detail. Yet, Edwin couldn't escape the whispers. You know those whispers. You're not good enough, the voice would say as he sat at his workbench, surrounded by the familiar scents of leather and glue. His talent wasn't the problem, though. It was the cycle that he was trapped in. Self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear of criticism. I call these backseat drivers because they never shut up. These three saboteurs, they work together, holding Edwin's creativity hostage. And if you've ever procrastinated on something that you care deeply about, you've probably met them too. So let's break down this vicious, this destructive cycle and see how Edwin and you and I can escape it. So let's talk about self-doubt. This is what I think is the first whisper. For Edwin, it started with self-doubt. You see, every time that Edwin picked up his tools, this unwelcome voice slithered into his mind. What right do you have to craft something of value? It would sneer. His hands, usually steady, would falter. He imagined an ornate floral design for the cover of his latest project, but before he could even begin, doubt dissolved his vision into fear. What if he wasn't good enough? What if his work didn't measure up? Self-doubt told Edwin that he had to overcompensate for his perceived inadequacies, which led him straight into the trap of perfectionism. So let's talk about perfectionism, this overbearing master. When Edwin managed to push through the doubt, perfectionism would then take over. He spent hours carving a floral design into the leather, obsessing over every curve and every single detail. But the tiniest flaw, a petal slightly off from the image in his mind, made him scrap the entire cover. This isn't flawless. It isn't worthy, he muttered, as yet another piece joined the pile of discarded covers. Perfectionism told Edwin that only a flawless product could silence his self-doubt, but instead, it robbed him of joy and it robbed him of progress. His craft became a chore, and his creations, meant to be gifts of beauty, stayed unfinished and unloved. Now let's talk about fear of criticism, the final block. When Edwin did manage to finish a piece, fear of criticism wrapped around him like a python. He stared at a completed book, its spine glimmering with gold leaf, and imagined sharing it at the local artisan market. But his thoughts spiraled. What if they mock it? What if they see it for what it is? Mediocre. And so the book, of course, stayed on his workbench, not because it wasn't ready, but because he wasn't ready. The fear of criticism paralyzed Edwin, reinforcing the self-doubt that had started everything in the first place. Now let's talk about this vicious cycle for a second. Here's the truth. Edwin's story isn't unique, as you know. Self-doubt whispered that he wasn't enough. Perfectionism demanded he overcompensate, stealing the joy from his work. Then fear of criticism stopped him from sharing, leaving his creations hidden in the shadows. And these three fed each other, creating a vicious cycle that kept him and his talent trapped. Now let's talk about breaking free from this destructive cycle. Because Edwin's story doesn't have to be yours. It doesn't have to be ours. The cycle isn't unbreakable. And here's how to escape. First, challenge the self-doubt. Like Edwin, you might feel like you're not good enough, but that's a lie. Your value isn't in perfection. It's in the courage to create and share. Second, release perfectionism. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Let the curve of the pedal be imperfect. Let the work reflect your humanity, not an impossible ideal. 3, reframe criticism. Criticism isn't a reflection of your worth. It's feedback. It's a chance to grow. And not all criticism will be bad. Some will be the encouragement that we actually need. 4, take small steps, as I've said before. Don't wait for the fear to fade, because it won't. Take small, actionable steps anyway. Share your work, even if it feels unfinished. And 5, embrace the process. Again, as I've shared before, creativity isn't about perfection or validation, right? It's about joy. It's about exploration, and it's about growth. Edwin's books were beautiful, but they remained hidden. Why? Because he let self-doubt, he let perfectionism and the fear of criticism win. Don't let the same thing happen to your creativity. So here's the challenge. Start today, as I always say. Create something messy, share something imperfect. Take the first step, even if your hands shake like Edwin's. Because the truth is, your creativity doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. And when you let go of the cycle, you'll discover the joy, the freedom, and fulfillment waiting for you on the other side. Your work is ready. Now it's your turn. Self-doubt tells you that you're not enough. Perfectionism demands the impossible. And fear keeps you from even starting. Together, they feed each other, ensuring that your creativity stays locked away, paralyzed at every turn. But their hold only lasts as long as you let it, because the moment you act, you begin to break the cycle. Freedom isn't found in perfection. It's found in taking the first step, flaws and all. And when you do, you realize creating is the antidote to every fear they tried to plant.